Bom dia. Let's begin our section. I'm Francisco Duarte from Production Engineer Program of UFRG. And this section, my colleague, David Cameron, will begin. It's a pleasure to be here with the Norwegian and Brazilian colleagues and to exchange about digitalization.
Thank you, Francisco. We've got a very packed session today and we've got a very hard lock on going to lunch. So what I propose to do is, since a lot of people heard what I talked about yesterday and I don't want to repeat that, that my talk will be more about how I see the rest of the talks in the session fitting into the framework I talked about yesterday around digitalization. So as I tried to convey yesterday, I see that digitalization in the natural resources industry, I think we should look at digitalization as being something that is not just oil and gas, it's also something that goes across all of heavy manufacturing industry. And when you think about large-scale solar, or when you think about large numbers of wind farms, when you think about anything about mining or large-scale chemicals, your digitalization challenges are essentially the same. As I said yesterday, I represent something called a Serious Centre. I have to do a lot of explanation on what the centre isn't. We are not a contract research organisation. We're financed by the Research Council to do fundamental research that is linked into innovation. So that's quite complicated because a lot of people think that we are a CINTEF or a CBPF, which has a legal entity to do things. Actually, we're part of a university, so we're required to do research. That gives us actually a bit of freedom that we don't have if we were a contract research organisation. Okay, so we're from that. We're financed by the Research Council of Norway. We've got companies like Statoil, Schlumberger, defining our research agenda for us. So we do computer science in support of digital transformation. So yesterday, just to review quickly, I like the model and analysis that was done by McAfee and Brynjolfsson from MIT around machines, platforms and crowds as a way of interpreting what's happening in digitalization. Now, the machines and platforms and crowds they talk about are things which have got to do with the Google sphere, Facebook and things like that. And we talked yesterday about how, in some ways, the oil and gas industry, everyone keeps saying the oil and gas industry isn't terribly digital. But really, the oil and gas industry has been using computers for sensible business purposes for 30, 40, 50 years, and often been pioneers in that area. And the other model we looked at is that a lot of companies go through and say, digitalization is about kicking off this checklist from the Industry 4.0. And if you do that, you're digitizing. Well, that's useful and it's an interesting way of thinking about things. But often you get there that you've got a set of technologies in search of solutions. And finally, we're very thankful that digitalization, the theory that computers can do useful things to your business beyond providing a desktop and a commercial and a financing package, is seen very much at the top level of organizations, so that the World Economic Forum is actually doing an initiative around digital transformation. And those rewards I went through yesterday. This is in Norwegian, so I'll try to explain what it is. This was last Thursday. DN, which is Business of the Day, is the pink newspaper in Norway. So it's the one which is read by all the finance people. The man on the front cover is called Carl Jonny Hersvik, former head of research at Statoil. Was also a manager of lots of operations. He's now Chief Executive Officer of Aker BP. So a middle-sized oil company that has just taken over all of BP's assets in Norway. It used to be called the Norske Oljeselskap. And the title here is he is the empire builder. He's going around building things. But what I want to point out here is, notice what he's photographed in front of? They've sent him down to the computer room. So this is the first time I've ever seen an oil and gas CEO saying that I believe that the computer is the thing which is going to make my business work well. So I think there's hope for us, because most of the talks I've heard here in all the sessions have been about, we do something technical, we need to use computers to make it work. I think there's very few papers that I've seen that haven't involved simulation, modelling, data analysis in all our areas. So, fortunate, our CEOs are actually interested in standing in front of computers. And another article from the same thing is on Statoil. And Statoil's now doing a great deal of work around digital transformation. And a great deal of thought about how do you actually take in all the buzzword technologies and shake them and find out what they're actually useful for. So this article is about a head of innovation, about 35 years old in Statoil, and she's going to be working on using blockchain. So of course it's gone through the media, so they have to explain blockchain by saying that's the thing which they use in Bitcoin. But she's of course not going to do anything with Bitcoin. She's going to use blockchain to try to make her transactions safe and more automatic. Bit of potential there, but again, we have to cut through the hype to get down to what it is. So those are the sort of things that are going on in the companies in Norway. It's a very positive change because it enables us, people who've been using computers for a long time, to hopefully get some more money to do useful things and get some attention from top management. Okay, today's session actually has a very fortunate structure. I believe that I should actually just give you this overview and then finish early and give the people who've actually got something important to say about what they've done more time to talk. So that gives you all 22 minutes instead of 20. What we're going to do is first we're going to have presentations from Petrobras and from NTNU/Statoil. We've unfortunately Vida Hepso, who was going to present from Statoil, can't be here because he got himself an ear infection, which was completely inconsistent with spending 14 hours on a plane. And so Egil Chorlund from NTNU is going to pretend he's Vida today. And hopefully also add his own unique approach to digitalisation, which I've heard a few times and I'm really looking forward to hearing. And then we'll also have a perspective from Petrobras on that. So we can do a bit of thinking about differences, commonalities between the Norwegian way of digitalisation and the Brazilian way of digitalisation. And then we have 4 papers about the challenges. And the challenges I can identify that we're addressing here is about organising knowledge and accessing data. Then we have Mara Abel from UFRGS, which is talking about semantic methods of organising and accessing data. That's also an area that Sirius is very interested in. We've got papers about interacting with physics and simulations. And that's very important. It makes us very different to, example, Facebook and Google, because we've got a physical world that we're always going to interact with. And we've got some papers on that. From our host institution today. We've got a paper on using artificial intelligence and cognitive computing from IBM. And that is both a great opportunity and also a structural challenge. So we're very interested in finding out about that, discussing how it works. And then we've got a concluding paper from Francisco Duarte on about making sure that technology keeps people creative, productive, satisfied and safe. You know, everything we do has to, in the end, benefit humanity and make the world a better place. And so we have to bring in work processes, we have to bring in ergonomics, and we have to make sure that the machines know their place. So I think it's a good point for me to sit down and shut up and let the people get on with presenting the real content today. And I think we'll be able to tell a good story around digitalisation. Muito obrigado. Then I can hit Control L. That then means that our next speaker, Ismael Santos from Petrobras, will give his perspectives on the challenges and opportunities for digitalisation in the oil and gas sector in Brazil. And I'll try to hit the button so you can start. Thank you, Ismael.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, everybody. My talk will be about some challenges and opportunities that we are facing at Petrobras. I changed the title a little bit because I'm not able to talk about the Brazilian sector in general, but we can talk. I just can talk more about Petrobras, but I think the problems are common to everyone. Sorry for that. Well, anyway, the digital technologies is comprising a lot of different technologies that you may know, especially machine learning, blockchain that my friend has already talked about, big data, and many other things. If you look into the Gartner emerging cycle for technologies, we see many of those different technologies that has emerged in the past, and it's becoming more common. But at Petrobras, for example, this part is an important problem for us. Enterprise taxonomy and ontology management for discovering problems in our reports, day-to-day reports of operation reports. This is a very fun problem for us because we have lots of knowledge described in those reports, and we have to recover the information inside of it. Many other things are also important in general. And I have to mention that my talk is based on the Digital Transformation Initiative report from the World Economic Forum. It's a very interesting publication that I recommend that if you have a chance to read it, it's very good. And the interesting thing about the digitalization in general is that our industry is not in the eye of the storm. As you can see, we are more in the outside because the oil industry is a kind of conservative industry. But when we decide to go for it, we really push our efforts on it. And certainly, that's what's happening now. We are moving ahead. So, the motivation for digital transformation is that the oil and gas usually help at the world transformation, providing heat, light, and mobility for the world's population. Today, digitalization can help redefine the oil and gas boundaries because we are recently facing the falling of crude prices, budget, and schedule overruns, climate change accountability, and difficulties in attracting talent, which everybody wants to work for Google and for other industries. No young student wants to work for oil industry anymore. We are not attracting the new guys. So it's imperative to move oil and gas towards an industry with reduced impact in the environment. So digitalization can help to tackle these challenges and provide value to all its stakeholders. But we have some challenges we will face. Exponential increase of global information flows creates risks around data privacy and security. And my friends from the IT group is always in a nightmare thinking about, oh, how can I make those data available for everybody? We won't have, we will suffer a lot of attacks and anything. But this is a controversial problem that we have to face with. Businesses across sectors are facing new challenges because their customers change expectations. We need to input a cultural transformation. We have an outdated regulation that doesn't take into account the new requirements for a digital society. And we also have a skill-short field of people to work with. And if you look into the areas of digital transformation, of the industrial revolutions, we are about facing a third industrial revolution, perhaps. So, since the 80s, oil and gas companies adopted digital technologies in order to better understand the reservoir resources, improving health and safety, boosting marginal operational efficiency in oil fields. And in the 90s, we have the digital oil field initiatives that will spread around all the companies. But even that, we are not taking into account the advantage of using data in a meaningful way. For example, a drilling rig can generate terabytes of data every day, but only a small fraction of it is used for decision making. That's the difference, because some of my fans talk to me, oh, what is the difference that you are proposing now and that we have been doing in the late 5-10 years? There's a big difference because the idea is to use data to improve your decision process. But of course, I don't think that we have to base all of our decisions only on data. I believe that the model-driven approach combined with the data-driven approach in a hybrid way is the solution for us, especially for a technology industry like oil and gas. So now oil and gas sectors is on the cusp of a new era because we are facing this revolution. We are trying to engage as fast as possible. So a second wave of business in digital technology has come, propelled by a series of trends. For example, the disruption in supply, demand, and commodity prices, because the price has reduced a lot since the last years. And when we see some signs of recovery. And we also have rapid advances in technology because new sophisticated platforms and mobility, surveillance, and connectivity and storage technologies coupled with the ability to process and analyze data foster the real-time decision-making process using big data, for example. So we also have the changing consumer needs and expectations because people are accustomed to have more and more information, and they need a personalized clue for what they have to do and what they want, and they need it as fast as possible. And also they pay more attention to the environment issues, which influences their energy choices. So those are the trends that the oil industry is facing for engage in the digital transformation. So due to the urgency to promote digital transformation, the traditional approach of selectively adopting a set of technologies and unsystematically doesn't fit anymore. It's not suitable anymore. So oil and gas could benefit if we do a revolutionary agenda with digital as a backbone. That's the main recommendation. Organizations should implement a focused digital strategy sponsored by, sponsored by the CEOs. We have to implement a culture in innovation and technology adoption. We need investments in commitment to revisit and revamp the process in the enterprises. And of course, to change the infrastructure and the systems. And the most important thing, we have to be open for collaborate across our partners, our customers, and everything. This is the key for leveraging our abilities to transform our industry. So the digital teams, as that was mentioned in this report, that we also agree that's very important, is that the digital, the digital asset lifecycle management, creating digital twins for the industry. At Petrobras, we are looking carefully into that problem. Circular collaborative ecosystem, which means that we need to integrate the digital platforms in order to enhance collaboration and helping to fast-track innovation, reducing costs and provide operational transparency. And we have to also think more than the barrel itself. Although the oil industry is a strategist industry, we have to think more about our partners in order to engage the customers, offering flexibility and personalize the experience in order to improve their revenues. So just to put some value in the digital transformation, those numbers are from this report that I mentioned. I don't know how they achieved these numbers, but I think they are quite certain about it. And this is some of the benefits over the next 10 years. 1.6 trillion for the industry in a wider society, which is a lot of money. It can further increase to $2.5 trillion if existing organizational and conventional constraints are relaxed, especially if we include the cognitive computing. We also have, they also estimate the benefit of $640 billion for the society in general, for customer savings, productivity improvements, and water usage, and lowering 430 billions for lowering emissions of CO2. It's quite a lot. This should be possible with the adoption of digital transformation in a broad sense in the industry. But what is the industry trends? We have the supply forces, because we are facing the rise of hydrocarbon sources like conventional oil. That will be responsible for 12% in the global supply in 2025. Also, due to the light tight oil, the geopolitical equations is changing because the Middle Eastern is losing its strength. We have a greater penetration of renewables because it's expected that solar energy and other industry will reduce costs. And we also have new technologies and materials for hydrocarbons, nanofluids for drilling, and all those things. And the demand forces is also changing because we are shifting global demands patterns, because from 96% of the demand from oil will come from non-OECD countries, as long as in the OECD, OCDE is requiring less and less, demanding less oil because the population is also diminishing. And also the millennials is reducing consumption, which means that our industry will face reduce the global demand will reduce. And the rise of electric vehicles and autonomous driving is also another will offer another reduction in 1.5 billion of barrels a day, equivalent barrels a day. And we also are facing the storage capabilities that is leading possible increase in adoption of renewables because the battery storage performance is improving a lot. So they will be able to store more energy easily than there was in the past. So other energy sources will become available. So you also have problems in the climate regulation and push for emission reduction. So this is the industry trends, the supply and the demand forces. And what is the digital trends that we face? So cloud, social media, and big data and analytics are driving trends that have immense potential for oil and gas. Because cloud computing can improve business by breaking down some silos and making the data available for many different applications. Big data and analytics can help allowing analyze a large quantity of structured and unstructured data. Mobile technology enables new business scenarios because people can talk easily each other, and the social channels enhance relationships with customers and all of that. And besides that, the industrial Internet of Things will vastly increase the volumes of data that companies can access. So if we look into in those three industries, those are the top, you see the top areas of over the next 30 to 6 years. It means that this is the amount of money that is investing today. How much is going to be invested in the near 3 to 5 years, which means that big data, IoT, and mobile devices is considered one of the most important things for developing the near future. Perhaps those areas will improve later, especially the robotics and drones, because for drones, for example, the problem is the battery life. But for oil and gas industry, the use of robotics, for example, is a very important thing for reducing people on board and adapt our platforms for receiving new robots, which is a problem that we have at Petrobras and Statoil and many others. The digital initiatives in the oil and gas industry can be classified more or less in those diagrams. And you can see that some initiatives related to those areas, they are very important for everyone, especially for us. For example, the improvement in the automation that's going to be needed, because, for example, it's very difficult to acquire in real time all the data from the automation group, because our IT group also doesn't have the ability or permission to access all those data in real time, so we have to make it available for all the applications spread all over the company to use those data. 2 minutes, oh sorry, I have to run. And you see many other, especially, for example, blockchains and to improve smart contracts is also an important thing for the future. 3D printing and additive manufacturing is also important. Cognitive computing and everything. So we think that for digital in oil and gas, those fields can be improved a lot. In exploration, for example, accelerated interpretation with machine learning is something important for field development, fully optimized field architecture with smart and integrated modeling. In drilling, we also have auto contributions, in operations, even more contributions. The expected, this is a report from BCG. The expected reduction in costs is about 60%, 70, 20, 30, and maintenance costs in the operations and production due to the usage of digital transformation in those sectors. Shell, for example, is considering those disruptive digital teams. They are also considering themselves the mobility, cloud, enhanced algorithms in computing power, and other stuff. BP is also seeing some initiatives in facing creating digital platform. The digital twin is also a very important topic for them. Update revenue models and improve operations and performance. ConocoPhillips have more or less the same idea, especially for digital twins. I would have, if I have more time, I would talk more about those problems. But for Total, for example, blowout prevention analytics is a very important thing. Prediction of risk of incurring shipping demurrage costs and Antwerp refinery. For Petrobras, we also are considering the offloading operations, which is a very important thing. And sometimes, depending according to the environment, you can have problems with a ship going into the direct in the platform. So many other things. And if we look in general, all those companies are investing in different areas of the digitalization ecosystem, and many initiatives are taken into account. The last thing I would like to talk about is the semantic search, which is very important for us at Petrobras in many areas, in production, exploration, refinery, and many other things, because we need to understand the knowledge that we have implied in the data and the reports that we have, and how to recover those information in allowing the engineers and the geologists, geophysicists, and reservoir engineers, how they acquire this knowledge that is in place on this for using. And we also have the digital twins approach that many of the companies are also looking into it. I'm sorry for passing the time, but my main message is that digital transformation is indeed a reality, and we have to run. Thank you.
We have time for a couple of questions. Okay.
Thank you, Ismail, for a very interesting presentation. You made the point that it's very relevant for the digitalization to bring the information to underpin decisions, yeah, in the industry. So, what do you see as the main hurdle in order to achieve that?
Oh. Thank you for the question. I think some companies. This is a problem in digital transformation in general. The availability of the data, I think, is the most important thing, because oil industry is a huge industry, and the companies, some companies for Petrobras, that is an integrated company, has many different areas. And we need to integrate more the data and make it available, building our data lake and everything like that in order to be able for the engineers and the geologists to use it in an easy way, which is very, very tough, at least at Petrobras. I know that Total, for example, has created a chief data officer, and many other industries are trying to do this. I think this is going to help a lot when we decide to change the way we deal with the data, and spread the data among the applications and among the groups. Perhaps a new CDO has to be created, or even a change in the culture. And also something important is the making it available for the engineers, the usage of the knowledge that we have in the models, using ontologies as components, as a serious project has approach, in order that the final user can develop its applications based on the knowledge on these components and using it to solve its problems without having to go deep into the detail of the knowledge. But they have to have the data available. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen.
Okay, on that point, we'll say thank you to Ismail.
Thank you, David.
Cheers. So the next paper is by Professor Egil Turland, presenting on behalf of Vidar Hepso. Egil is Professor of Petroleum Engineering at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And here we go.
Thank you very much, David. And thank you very much for being here at my first November conference. It's a pity that Professor Vidar Hepso couldn't attend here today because of his problem with his ear. So I will then do the presentation on his behalf. Vidar Hepso, he works as a professor at our Department of Geoscience and Petroleum. And it just shows that we have a very close collaboration between industry, in this case Statoil, and the university, NTNU. So I thought from yesterday's lecture by David here, talking about digitalization, what is it really? And it's a good example really that even though Vidar is back home in Norway now with an ear infection, he could send his presentation to me digitally using digitalization techniques so that I can do it here. It's a good example of how far the industry has come. And one more thing I have to mention, when we were sitting here yesterday listening to this place hosting all those famous physicists like Feynman and Einstein and so on, those guys were really those that created this digitalization that we are talking about today. So it's a quite big honor to be in this place. So now this presentation is really about the opportunities of using digitalization as a cross-link between universities and industry. So there will be some discussion of how Statoil looks at the theme, digitalization, and it will also give some ideas how our university works on this theme. So just a short overview of the presentation. I will show you some examples how Statoil challenges digitalization, and then I will talk a little bit about an initiative that NTNU has done in order to make a survey around Norwegian industry to see how they think about this. So I start here by showing Statoil's presence in Brazil. We heard that from Statoil's presentation yesterday, but we have seen the press release by the CEO, etc., showing that they had a successful bid on the Carcara block, and this was actually last week, and it shows Statoil's big commitment to Brazil, and increasing as we could see from yesterday's presentation. So here is digitalization as Statoil sees it. So if you see on the top there, they define it as the process of moving to a digital business, meaning integrating digital technologies into a way we work. So if you look at the historical context, a little bit like David also mentioned in his keynote yesterday, we have seen integrated operations for a while now, 10 years. So the question is, what is really the difference? Well, there is a very rapid technology advancement coming up now, and it seems like the integrated operation initiative in the early 2000s is kind of accelerating into this digitalization as we call it today. Here's 3 technology shifts, very similar to what we just heard from Petrobras' presentation. So what is the new things? Well, you have process digitalization, advanced analytics, and robotics with remote control. What does it mean in reality? Well, it means that we have to provide people, and also if we think of universities, we have to provide students with new knowledge. Some examples of the process digitalization: cognitive computing, meaning artificial intelligence, machine learning, software robots for work process automation. If you go to advanced analytics, predictive maintenance, enhanced reservoir understanding, and when you come to robotics, for instance, automatic drilling, remote operation of installations. So this is maybe the key question. What does a future digital engineer need to know? Well, there is a book here by Holland and Crompton. And it seems like a rather impossible task for an engineer these days. You need to have the basic knowledge of your field, like the domain expertise. But in addition, you should also know about data engineering, platforms, math and statistics, visualization, SQL, and so on. That makes a very big challenge for both our engineers in the industry, not least for our studies. And it's a big challenge, actually. When I see this, how can we put all this knowledge into a young mind for 5 years of study? It will be a hard challenge, but I think this is what we are facing. This is a challenge that we are facing if we are going to do this in a thorough way. Statoil, they have actually also put a big effort into digitalization. So similar to what we saw on those examples from Petrobras, where you had all those companies, this is actually the Statoil's platform. So they have made a center for digitalization. You can see Statoil Data Platform. And then they have, as a center, and then they have tasks, as you can see, those 6 tasks. Digital safety, security and sustainability, subsurface analytics, next generation well delivery, field of the future, data-driven operations, and process digitalization and insight. So that is their platform. And we have seen that the CEO of Statoil, they have actually made a big, big center, put a lot of money into this, and it's one of the key factors for their business strategy. So just following up on the comment on how integrated operations in the early 2000s, how that has kind of moved into new areas. So we have heard this before. I guess we will hear it more today. But in addition to integrated operations, you also have big data, you have Internet of Things, social media. These are very important contributors to this new picture, as we can say. It's kind of, it's not discrete, I think. It's more like a continuum here. But all these things will make a difference for our industry and our education. So now I will leave the Statoil part of this, and I will go into the fact-finding mission that NTNU did over the last 2 years. We called it Better Resource Utilization 21, BRUTE 21. And actually, we had a survey where we went to all Norwegian oil and service companies and also governmental agencies. And we asked them the simple question, what can we as an academic institution do for the industry to make the oil business sustainable of oil prices down to $30 per barrel? The price of oil was at that time around 60. So it was kind of, we felt it was a little bit challenging, but you remember it went all the way down to 27, I think, at its bottom. And it was really an interesting round trip, because first of all the companies, they liked that we came from an academic institution and asked them questions, that we didn't go there and told them all the solutions. But we were just listening to their problems and challenges. So we made a strategy. This is the one you can see to the right, that we called the NTNU strategy for oil and gas. And that is our leading strategy now. It was a little bit hard after 41 visits to summarize all those points, because there were hundreds and hundreds of ideas and challenges and problems and so on. So we did the following. We ended up with 6 main findings. And this is for the Norwegian oil sector. So this is a little bit, yeah. So but if you look at those boxes there, you see that we actually found 6 main areas of challenges, main facts of findings, sorry. New business models, very important for many companies. Field development, late life challenges, Barents Sea, which is very important for Norway, and environmentally friendly production. But look at the middle of those 3 circles. The circles being efficiency boosting, environmental care, and enabling petroleum technologies. That is digital and automation solutions. So that was the key finding of all those meetings we had. All companies stated that that was the very most important things for them. So we actually decided, okay, what is the comparative advantage that we at NTNU have on this respect? Because we know that digitalization is a widely used word, but we would like to put some details into it, and we have a lot of departments and environments at NTNU that could solve that. So we decided to establish a research program in digital and automation solutions for the oil and gas industry. And what we did was to just put around our sources, the sources being our domain knowledge from the petroleum area, the cybernetic and robotics, which is very popular studies, very good environment for these things, human and work processes, and data technology and cybersecurity. So the idea was very simple. We would like to have kind of an ecosystem. And the ecosystem is very simple. You have a PhD, and around the PhD, you have a professor in domain knowledge, you have a professor in the digital knowledge, you have the industrial supervision, a company, and then you bring on master students to add on to the PhD. And that should, after our thoughts, give results. So that is the idea that we have done. So we have asked the industry, what is important for you? Digitalization is one of those important things. We would like to not just talk about it, we would like to make an effort to solve it and make it concrete. And this is the model that we have chosen to do. So we have already 10 PhDs now working on this. We actually also just recently employed a new professor at our department, and we invented this professorship. I don't think you have heard it before. Maybe you have, but we call it professorship in petroleum cybernetics. That is quite new, right? And he has now worked for 1 year, and he is very active, and he will lead this initiative. He has already started, and he's working hard on that. So we would like to go from kind of, we would like to go from the words, the buzzwords, as you said, until more of the concrete actions, and we would like to make results. So I invite all of you industrial partners here. If you like to join this, you're very welcome. I'm here all day. As you can see, the scope is 40 PhD over 3 or 4 years, and I'm sure we can achieve great results. Yeah. So by that, I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple of questions. Yes.
I guess you did not present the research areas. It was in your last slides. The research areas that you are interested. Yes.
I got 2 minutes from David, so I'm very,
yes, I'm
trying
helping
to
you.
be kind of following his orders. No, it's okay. If I get, yeah. So, the areas that we look upon is research and development areas, as you can see to the left, and education areas. Well, it's possible to see, but it's data analytics and machine learning on the research and development topics, automated solutions, sensor and communication technologies, increased autonomy for subsea intervention and environmental monitoring, automated model updates for reservoir monitoring and management, cybersecurity, digital tools for efficient field development and operation planning, and decision support system for HSC improvements, for instance, offshore health management. That is on the research part. On the education part, that is, well, to put it very simple, we have, as Petrobras was just mentioning, we have a problem of declining interest in our business. Oil business is not as fun to work in these days, today, as in other fields. So what we would like to do is actually to put our students more into a combination through that program, as we discussed, together with people with other discipline knowledge. But the people with the discipline areas like cybernetics or computer science and so on, they also need to learn domain specifics. Otherwise, it would be very expensive for the oil companies to employ these guys. You have to do a lot of training afterwards. So we'd like to merge that into a kind of a common ecosystem. That is on the educational part. So.
Great, and on that we'll say thank you and move to let's have a 10-minute coffee break, and we'll be back at 10:40. Thank you.
was a little bit. What's your orders, you know? Sorry? I'm trying to follow the time. When you say 2 minutes,
yes, that's right. That's good. Right?
Yeah.
Could be a bit of stress.
How we can I am speaking. I would like to see
You are from
Yes, of course.
CBPF.
Hello, good. Hi, good. Hi. Good. Excellent. Oh, yeah. Yeah, very good. George represented. Yes, please. Yeah. So it would be a really, really interesting if we could do cooperation. Because I'm representing the whole of NTNU here in this case. And it's a big university and a lot of research areas where I think we could really good absolutely. So that's very interesting. So I could produce an email with some updates, and maybe we could start by having a kind of a Skype meeting or something like that. Just that we could, because I will bring my people here, so we could look at collaboration areas.